Apple Music has officially unveiled their top 100 albums list of all time, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the biggest snubs, we're going to be talking about albums that should have ranked higher than others, and much more. So let us know down in the comments, what was one album that you feel like should have made this list, and what was the biggest snub? And before we actually get on with this, let us know, should we do a version of our own top 100 albums list at some point? But Ant, let's get started with this. The biggest elephant in the room, of course, is the fact that Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly, his masterpiece, is left off completely.
I think it's blasphemy. I think when you look at Kendrick's catalog, you could argue that it's even better than GKMC, and GKMC had a super high placement on this list. So I feel like, listen, okay, you think GKMC is better? Fine. Place it in the top 10. But to have Astroworld on this list, to have Get Rich or Die Trying on this list, to have Take Care on this list, those are somewhat valid picks. But to have those albums in front of To Pimp a Butterfly, I feel like is objectively wrong. You look at the production on that album, the writing, the impact of the album, it being one of the best rap albums of the 2010s. You could argue that...
Forget the 2010s of all time. I don't even want to put it to a decade.
Okay, well, listen, I had it in my top 3. I had it in my top 3.
That's what I'm saying.
So, listen... To my list, I feel like this is objectively wrong, but I feel like a lot of people look at it differently because, like, oh, well, they included Kendrick in this already with GKMC. Maybe they couldn't have included too. It doesn't matter.
No,
it really doesn't matter. There's none of that in this.
There's more than one Beatles album. There's a couple of artists on here that have multiple albums, so we can use the excuse of, well, they already gave Kendrick one placement, they can't give him another. And like you were saying, this is an album that has checked every box musically when you're looking at all the different genres that were blended in, from jazz to soul to gospel. Kendrick Lamar making an anthem for a political movement that was so necessary and so needed at that time. The timelessness of the themes within the album. I mean, there's no area that I can pinpoint and be like, well, it didn't have this, therefore we can make an excuse for it not being on this list. It made absolutely zero fucking sense. And as someone that does believe that Good Kid, Mad City is a better album, I was happy to see it placed so highly. But again, this is a travesty for the music community, bro.
It really is. And you expect Apple Music to do better. You expect Apple Music to do better, especially as an Apple Music listener myself. I'm like, well, fuck, this is tough.
That being said, I mean, it's subjective at the end of the day, but like, if there is a music opinion that should be objective, it would be that To Pimp a Butterfly is a top 100 album of all time. So,
well, especially over the other albums that are covered. Like, I would have been okay with it. Well, no, not okay with it, but imagine they would have had like less hip-hop albums on the list, and then you're like, well, okay, maybe it didn't creep up. I feel like that would have been a whole different conversation, but the fact that you have a lot of hip-hop albums on this list and you didn't include this one, I feel like is a travesty.
I have to give them credit for that, though. Just the idea that they included so much hip-hop and even had their number one album being a hip-hop album, which was The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Even though I don't agree with that being placed number one, I still was happy with how much inclusion hip-hop ended up getting. But let's get started with this list, bro. Let's get started at number 99, Hotel California by the Eagles. Classic album, Diamond album. I think that deserves to be there. Number 98, Astroworld by Travis Scott. Where's Rodeo? Like, if you're going to put a Travis Scott album.
I can't say anything. I've always said that they're on the same level. But again, To Pimp a Butterfly before Astroworld, that's crazy. That's fucking crazy, Lou.
I think that's going to be like the narrative for like almost 50% of this list, because I think that it does deserve to be at minimum in the top 50 list. So I don't want to start playing that game of every album that we get to of being like, this is better, this is not as good as
Well, I'm playing that game today, Lou. I'm going to be honest.
But no, I feel like Rodeo was the more innovative album to blend the worlds of trap and psychedelic music. I feel like that should have cracked it over Astroworld, to be honest. Number 95, Confessions by Usher, classic R&B album. That's cool to see there. Number 92, Flower Boy by Tyler. How do you feel about this one?
I feel like this is a good placement just because I do feel like Flower Boy is one of Tyler's strongest albums in his catalog. We've spoken about it many times on the podcast. I've done deep dives on this album, and yes, maybe some people could argue that Igor should have been there instead of it, but I'm still super happy with the placement. I think that Flower Boy was a great inclusion, and I think that it's arguably his best album, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I think it revamped Tyler's career and really let us see him in a new light musically with the chord progressions he was bringing in, with just him taking his pen game a little bit more serious. So Very happy to see that there. Again, if I were to make a top 100 albums list, I don't know if it would crack it, but it would be somewhere within this range. And a quick shout out to Solange, The Seat of the Table. That's a fantastic album. Let's keep on going. Shout out Back in Black, AC/DC, number 90.
That's one of your favorite albums of all time.
It's one of my favorite albums of all time. 84, Doggy Style by Snoop Dogg.
Do you think that this was too low on the list? Or do you think it was perfectly placed?
I think it was well placed, but that being said, I feel like there's other West Coast albums like 2001 by Dr. Dre that are nowhere to be seen on this fucking list.
Or To Pimp a Butterfly.
Or To Pimp a Butterfly.
Like, come on. But that's what I'm trying to say, though, is that I'm sure an editor at Apple had to be, like, looking at To Pimp a Butterfly. You couldn't have forgotten that album. Like, what's the reasoning? Like, really, like, if you think about it, what is a valid reason for it to not be on this list?
Cause controversy, create conversation. I mean, that's something that you have to think about, bro. Like, that's the first thought that comes to my mind,
but dude,
because
you're putting together a definite top 100 albums of all time list. Like, this is like, okay, I'm a music publication. I'm also a service provider for the industry. Apple is fucking Apple. It's huge. Like, we're talking about like the Mecca. Like, they've influenced the music in so many different ways. You can't not include that. Okay, you want to cause controversy? Put it at fucking 75. I don't care. But include it on the list. You have to put it there.
it's pretty wild. Number 82, Get Rich or Die Trying by 50. No complaints here. One of the best gangster rap albums of all time.
I was surprised to actually see it make this list. Look.
You were surprised to see? Yeah, because a lot of people are split on it. A lot of people do have a bit of mixed reception about this album.
This is one of the happiest placements in the community, though. From what I saw from the online community,
fuck
people
yeah.
love this placement. So
Classic
can't
New
be mad
York
at that.
album.
The Marshall Mathers LP at number 80.
Could have been higher.
Could have been higher.
think it could have been
Especially
higher.
once you start to get into the 30 range, I would have it over certain 30 range albums from the hip hop genre at least. So then you go through the rest of the list. Super
Un
Duper
Verano Sin T, Bad Bunny. Get that out of here, bro. What's that doing
at number
on here?
76. Get that the fuck out of there. Super Duper Fly by Missy Elliott. Fantastic album.
Fantastic album, yeah.
Would I have it
groundbreaking.
over the Marshall Mathers LP? No, not in my opinion, but I feel
Would you
like
have it over T-Pab? I don't think so.
I wouldn't think so as well. SOS by SZA.
Yes, let's talk about this because this is one of the more recent albums to make the list. This came out in 2022 in December, I believe, and this is absolute recency bias. Like, I'm sorry, there's no way that this is a top 72 album of all time. I think that Control has better vocal performances. I feel like better song concepts on that record too, and I just feel like this was not a strong placement. What about you?
I don't think it was a strong placement either. I think you could argue that Control's a better album
Absolutely.
than SOS. Like, if that would have maybe been in the 95 to 100 range, okay, I could see that being a thing. But having it as a top 75 album of all time, only after maybe like, I don't know, how long has it been out for?
2 years.
More or
A
less.
bit less, actually.
Anyways, let's keep going on with this. Number 70, Straight Outta Compton by NWA. Great placement. Can't be mad at that.
No complaints.
Shout out to Master of Puppets, by the way, by Metallica.
Absolutely,
At number 69, one of my favorite albums. Then after that, you start getting a bit more hip hop within this realm because you start seeing that 3 Feet High and Rising by De La Soul makes the number 65 placement. I love this placement, and I'm a big fan of De La Soul. We're gonna start incorporating more De La Soul material in a lot of our different episodes, just because you could go through their catalog and find so much quality, so many different production styles, incredible rapping all the way throughout it as well. But at 65, over certain albums over this list, I'm not sure. Like,
No.
again, the Marshall Mathers LP, 2001, To Pimp a Butterfly, like, that's big statements. Those
Number
are huge
62,
yeah.
All Eyes on Me by Tupac. I think this one, you could say is well placed. Again, I feel like it could have been lower on the list. I don't think I'd have it in the top 62 albums of all time. And I also feel like when I talk about double albums in hip hop, I think Life After Death is also a better album than this, and this wasn't on the list.
That's very true.
That's my opinion, at least.
But you know what? Like, it's all eyes on me. You can't
yeah,
disagree
like
with
I
the
said,
placement.
I'm not mad at it. I just think it's a bit high.
Yeah.
I think it's too high. 61, Love Deluxe by Sade. Let's fucking
You know,
go.
people were tagging me in this post because they
Fucking
know how
beautiful.
much I love
But
this
honestly,
album.
there's actually been a big resurgence for Sade. Like, I'm seeing that as of late, the last couple of years, there's been a lot more demand. There's been streams going up. Like, I feel like a new generation is discovering Sade and just her blissful voice and just how heavenly an album like Love Deluxe really is. So, what a fucking treat to see it there.
But you can't disinclude this album from this list.
No.
Like, it's spectacular. It's my favorite R&B album of all time, by the way. Like, personal bias. with that statement. But let's keep going on with this.
57 needs
Voodoo,
to be
yeah, okay,
about.
listen to this. Voodoo by D'Angelo at 57.
D'Angelo should have been in the fucking top 10 with this album. Sorry. When you have Blonde, like, if you want to talk about, like, we got to include a lot of genres and subgenres, I get it. You got the alt R&B placement with Blonde at number 5, but there is no way that that's a better album or a more groundbreaking album than Voodoo. And when you talk about vocal layer, let me talk. When you talk about vocal layering, when you talk about, again, song concepts, when you talk about what he was able to accomplish, bro, like, this is a groundbreaking album. This changed the face of R&B, and you're gonna put it over Blonde? There's no fucking way.
Put it below Blonde.
Put it below Blonde. Yeah.
I don't think it's that bad of a take, though. I don't think so.
You would put Blonde above Voodoo.
For like, okay.
You've agreed with me that Malibu could be argued as a better album than Blonde.
Well, it's because I hold Malibu to such a high standard.
But just to say,
but
like
it's not.
It's a different league to me. I'm sorry. Blonde should not be.
Like, we're talking about arguably
it should not
the
be
best
50 placements above Voodoo.
Like, Blonde is considered to be the To Pimp a Butterfly of the R&B section for our generation.
For modern generation.
For modern R&B. Like, you could say that it's the best R&B of the last 15 years.
Is it better than Voodoo? That's what we're arguing.
It's like that. Okay, I think it's on the same level.
That's a bad
like
take.
It's in the same leagues. If I had to do a tier list, they're in the same tier list. Like, that's what I think. So
listen to "Send It On" again. Replay that song.
I understand, and I understand
if,
how gratefully aged this album is. Like, I understand like everything that goes into Voodoo. But what I'm saying is that I think the only thing that's kind of fucking with you here is that Blonde is all the way up, and this is like not even in the top 50.
No, this is an album that like is like next to like What's Going On, Marvin Gaye. Like, that's how strong this album is. I'm sorry, this is an all timer. This is an all timer.
I can't disagree with you. Yes, I know it's an all timer.
No, that's your worst take of this video.
What? I didn't agree with you.
You said they're on the same level. They're not on the same level.
I think Blonde and Voodoo are on the same level.
I disagree with that. Let's keep on going though. Anti by Rihanna at 55. Come on.
Not over
What are
Voodoo.
we doing here?
Not over Voodoo.
What, like right after, like 2 placements above. What the fuck is that? I'm sorry.
How do you feel about Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses over, let's say, a Back in Black or let's say a Master of Puppets?
I have to see if like certain Floyd albums are on this list, because when you're talking about like the pantheon of rock albums, yes, it's a classic rock album. I just don't know if it is
you don't
top
have
52
you don't have
level.
you don't have any Pink Floyd albums below this. You don't have any Pink Floyd
above?
Below. You don't have anything below it. So
yeah, so maybe there's more Pink Floyd to come. We'll have to see. But yeah, I'm cool with it. What about you?
I'm cool with it. I mean, I think it's a bit high.
It's a bit high though.
I would have Back in Black and Master of Puppets over it, in my opinion.
But let's go on to 47. Take Care by Drake.
This was crazy.
This was one that had a lot of people talking. Of course, I do feel like the Marshall Mathers LP and some of the other hip hop albums that we saw lower on this list deserve to be higher than Take Care.
Yeah.
I also feel like Nothing Was the Same as Drake's most concise album and his best put together body of work, but I'm not super mad about Take Care being on here instead of Nothing Was the Same.
I think it's too high though.
It is way too high.
I think it's way too high. And like you said, you could argue for Nothing Was the Same being a better rap album and it being higher. I just feel like there's probably more genre-bending stuff going on with Take Care. And
more impactful.
They probably looked at that and was like, oh, well, you know what? That probably deserves to be higher. It's just that, again, are you putting Take Care over Voodoo? Are you putting Take Care over something like Love Deluxe? Are you putting it over something like All Eyes on Me?
No.
Are you putting it over something like, let's say, the Marshall Mathers LP or Get Rich? Like, it's tough, bro. That's a tough placement. That's a tough fucking placement. I'm not going to lie to you.
But I will say this. There's a lot of people saying it's not even worthy of being in the top 100. I disagree with that. I just feel like it should have been way lower. That's really what I
don't know if
feel.
I would have included it in my top 100 albums of all time. I don't know if I would have included it. I would have had Nothing Was the Same.
I think when you look at like just the impact that it had for this generation and like the new styles of R&B and hip hop that it ushered in, like this is an important album. So no, I think it deserves to be here, just way too high. 46, nice shout for Exodus by Bob Marley and the Wailers.
Love that album.
One of my favorite albums of all time, without a doubt. Let's keep on going. 41, Outkast, Aquemini. Some more 90s classics to come here. This was the right album to include from Outkast.
Yeah, I don't think you should have included AT Aliens. Even though it's maybe my more spinned album from their discography, I wouldn't have gone with Speaker Box, Love Below. I wouldn't have gone with Stankonia. I think Aquemini is objectively their best album.
Absolutely.
So that's a good placement.
39, one of the worst fucking placements on this entire list. This one really really bummed me out. I'm not gonna lie.
Absolutely.
Like how do you have Illmatic at 39?
It's considered hip hop's Bible.
It's
And like if you wanted to put something in the top 10, you can't say GKMC is over this album. I'm sorry, you can't. It's literally like the predecessor to the album. This is what kickstarted it. It's some of the best rapping performances and some of the best storytelling that the genre has ever seen. The classic boom bap production, the albums that it's influenced. Like, come on, bro. Come on. It's arguably the best ever emceeing performance by a rapper of all time on a studio album.
yeah,
Like, and then you have a New York.
totally shifted the landscape of what rappers were capable to do with the pen game, bro. Like it really changed so much, and I don't understand this placement, bro.
And
It
I don't
doesn't make
understand
any
having
sense.
stuff like Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers over it, even
Well,
though
I mean,
that's
it's a
it's not
possible.
over it.
It's not over,
It's
but
not
I'm not
over
gonna
it.
look at that one and be like, 36 Chambers. Like no, like
No. 36
Let's talk about like fucking like some other albums like Billie Eilish's When We All Fall Sleeping above it. Like let's talk about that. Let's have those conversations. Of like My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy being placed above Illmatic. Like that's what's really, really shocking to me.
But all right, let's keep going on with this. So obviously you have Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers at 37. Then you get into 34. It takes a nation of millions to hold us back by Public Enemy. Can't be mad at that placement. A lot of publications have it high end in their list. Didn't crack my top 10 list, but I understand why people include it. Ready to Die, 32. This one's very interesting. So I think for your rotation and personal bias, you probably listen to Ready to Die more than Illmatic, right?
I do. Yeah, I do listen
But
to Ready to Die.
in the
But I think Illmatic's a better album, though.
Writing wise and production wise and impact wise, you
Absolutely.
could have the argument for these two. I think Ready to Die should have been higher on this list, if I'm being honest with you.
100%. Yeah, this is an album that should have been
Yes.
top 20, top 30 in terms of just an
I
artist
think
that
top
was
20 is
able
good.
to dominate the top 20 for sure. And in terms of an artist able to dominate the mic, in terms of how groundbreaking it was as a concept album within the mid 90s, like this is just it's perfection, bro. Like this is a perfect album to me, and I don't think it deserves to be where it's at. But let's keep on going. Number 29, The Low End Theory by a Tribe Called Quest. Absolute classic for jazz rap.
We have it in the background.
I think that this is one of the happiest placements for me out of this entire list. It deserves to be exactly where it's at, and maybe even arguably a couple of spots higher.
But not in front of Illmatic or Ready to Die.
No.
Not in front of those albums.
No, but it's arguable, though. It's arguable for sure.
All right, let's keep going on with this. 28.
Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. There
Can't
we
be
go.
mad at that.
There
Can't
we
be-
go.
That's definitely
Same
the
for
right
Led
place.
Zeppelin 2 at 27.
By the way, did they include Led Zeppelin 4?
I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah,
as we
we'll
keep
go through
going.
the rest of it because that's a hot take. Led Zeppelin 2
That
over,
is-
over
that-
Led Zeppelin 4 is a
That
hot
is
fucking...
a hot fucking take. Or,
That's a
or
crazy
even
take.
like even the OG Led Zeppelin album.
Yeah, no, Led Zeppelin 4 though. Led
But
Zeppelin
I'm
4 is
saying
that album, bro.
I would put like Led Zeppelin also above Led Zeppelin 2. But number 26, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye West. This was interesting just
Yeah.
because it was the only Kanye West album on this list. And we both don't believe that it's his strongest album. And I think that when you're looking at consistency of track list, it's there, but you were making arguments that it maybe like weighs off a bit towards the end. I'm not mad with it being on a top 100 list, but like, bro, drop it like 50 or something. Literally drop it fucking 50 or some shit, bro. So it
Do you
should be
put,
top
I don't put
26.
Take Care in front of MBDTF though.
I don't.
I don't put... Oh, Get Rich or Die Trying or MBDTF.
I would go Twisted Fantasy over Get Rich, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get what you're saying though. I understand why they put it there. I understand why they put it so high though. Because that would have, like, imagine they disincluded this album from this list. Imagine having to Pimp a Butterfly PR and the MBDTF PR coinciding together.
Yeah, that'd be wild.
That would have been fucked.
That'd be wild.
That would have been crazy. So they had to include this.
But yeah, I feel like they could have definitely also included College Dropout or Late Reg or Graduation. Like, there was a lot of Kanye albums that merited to be in this conversation, but I'm not mad at it. It's still one of his best albums of all time, and yeah, it's cool. 25.
Kinda Blue by Miles Davis. Thank you, Apple. I appreciate
W.
this. Yeah, you can't be mad at that. But let's keep going on with this. Let's go on to the 19. The Chronic by Dr. Dre. I love the
Can't
Chronic.
be mad at it, though.
Can't be mad at it. But bro, 2001's a better album.
I think it's a better album, but I think that
Yeah.
I get the play here because this was the more influential album. This was the album that set off the new era of Dre's solo career. It birthed fucking G-Funk and brought it to the masses. It was the hype of the fucking dynamic duo that became Dre and Snoop. Like, there's so many reasons to, like, the classic songs on here. Fuck with Dre Day, fucking Nothing But a G Thing. Like, I'm not mad at it at all. Like, I'm not even gonna fucking question this placement. I'm really not, bro. Like,
Yeah, but they're putting it over Illmatic though. That's the problem with the
Yeah.
placement itself.
Yeah.
You don't want to discredit it because obviously, like, it did so much for the genre and it's influential. But again, looking at the other placements and looking at what got this included from this list as far as hip hop goes, is definitely a bit tough. 1989 by Taylor Swift over Everything Below. I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know. I
was,
really don't know. I don't know. Dark Side of the Moon or 1989? I don't know. Ready to Die? Below 1989? I don't know, brother. That's
that was fucking wild to see. And you know what? Like, I have listened to the Taylor version and like the OG version, and like they should have actually put the OG version. Like, the recording does sound a bit more polished to me, and I mean, all love and support for what Taylor was able to do with her catalog and to gain her masters back and that whole thing. Like, I respect the move, but just to say, I just feel like the original version does sound better than this one. So that was even interesting to me. But at 17, absolute W, but it should have been higher. This is What's Going On by Marvin Gaye, one of my favorite albums of all time. When you're talking about like just classic Motown music, classic soul, timeless themes about war and peace, and just talking about black plight, like so many important songs like Mercy Mercy Me and the title track. Like, this is truly one of the best achievements in the history of
I
music.
can't be mad at that.
This should be higher though.
It should be
This
higher.
should be fucking
Putting
higher.
21
it
by
kind of aggravated me a little bit.
Putting 21 by Adele over What's Going On is kind of fucking crazy. I feel like that's nuts.
Yeah, shout out to Joni Mitchell of Blue.
Fantastic
13,
album.
The Blueprint by Jay-Z. There we go.
Yeah. No, sir. Nah, no, sir. Below Ready to Die. I think Jay-Z would even tell you, like, the Blueprint is below Ready to Die. I don't know if he would tell you below Illmatic.
I think it's his best album, though. I think it's his best.
Yeah, but this is like a 40 to like 30 placement.
Yeah, I agree.
This is not a top 15 placement. You can't say the Blueprint's a top 15 album of all time.
No, you can't.
I'm sorry. You're not putting it over 36 Chambers. You're not putting it over Illmatic.
You could even argue Marshall Mathers LP. Like, it should have been in that range of like being side by side with that album. I'm saying they're on like
Yes,
similar levels.
That's very true. But like
You know?
I prefer the Blueprint over the Marshall Mathers LP personally. But okay, shout out to OK Computer by Radiohead. This was a great placement. I do feel like it's one of the best albums of all time. Big fan of this
Everyone
placement.
expected to see, like, this was an
Yeah,
obvious one.
yeah,
Same
this-
for Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. Everyone expected to see it in the top like 10 or 15. Lemonade by Beyonce, Nevermind by Nirvana, Back to Black by Amy Winehouse at number
This is
8.
a beautiful placement.
Incredible album, is aging fucking magnificently, and just again, like, this is an album that came out in the 2000s, but feels like and sounds like through her vocals and through the production, for how classy and elegant it sounds, it could have existed in a numerous amount of decades. So truly a timeless album. Love what she did with that one. Number 7, here we go. Good Kid, Mad City, Kendrick Lamar. Again, I'm cool with it. I'm cool with it where it is. Again, would I have it in top 10 considering all genres? Maybe it goes into the top 15, but it's around that range. Like, I'm really, really cool with this album being placed where it is.
Not over the Pimple Butterfly. It's not over Illmatic either. You can't. In my opinion, I understand it should have.
No, it's in that league. I'm not gonna say like, oh fuck, like really, like
top 20, maybe 25 to 15. That's where I would place it. 25 to 15.
No, I think it's okay where it is, and like I said, it could be bumped down a couple of spots, but I'm not taking issue with this. This is literally, it's a movie and a fucking album in one. How could you be mad at this? This is one of the most descriptive hip hop albums ever recorded.
I'm not mad at it.
Classic. We've sang its praises so many fucking times. Number 6, Songs in the Key of Life by Stevie Wonder.
This should have low-key been higher.
Yeah, this could have been number 1 for me, honestly speaking.
It could have been number 1 for
like
me
this
as well.
is the best double album to ever exist. I think that sonically groundbreaking, like from the instrumental tracks to what Stevie was able to do with his band, like just changed the landscape of music forever. So many classic songs. When you're talking about like classic tracks on a classic album, this might have more than any other. Like, it's just It's
You
incredible.
see, like, I look at this placement below Blonde, and this is when I have to start asking questions. The Voodoo placement, whatever, that's up for debate.
What are you asking questions about?
Bro, how do you have Blonde over Songs in the Key of Life?
Yeah. I know.
That's a rough
No,
placement.
the Blonde just shouldn't be here, bro. If you're gonna talk about Good Kid, Mad City having to be bumped down, we're gonna talk about Blonde not
Okay, where would fine?
worthy.
Do your justice. Do like your thing, Lou. Like, speak your shit. Where do you think Blonde should be placed on this list?
Top 50-ish range, somewhere around there, maybe.
I think
Not top 5. What the fuck are we doing?
No, it's not top 5. 40
Come
to
on.
30. 40 to 30, probably.
Sure.
In my opinion.
Number 4, Purple Rain. Number 3, Abbey Road by the Beatles. These are a lot of the classics that everyone puts into conversation.
2, Thriller.
2, Thriller, Mike Jack. I would have put Off the Wall above Thriller, for
That's
being
a
honest.
hot take. I think a lot of Michael Jackson fans, though, like, they share that opinion with you, probably. Number 1, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill by Lauryn Hill. So, do you think that this is genuinely the best album of all time?
No, I definitely don't. I think that this is an album that is better than Blonde. I think it's better than a lot of the albums swarming around these placements. I would have maybe put it in the top 20 or top 30, though. I don't think that it's the best album.
Like,
to
I
ever
see it on the
exist.
same level as, like, a low-end Theory, for example. Like, I see it around that area, if I'm being quite honest. You know, you could have it around there, and I think, listen, W for Lauryn Hill, love. You can't be mad at that. Shout out to them for putting a hip-hop album at number 1, but Illmatic should have been that number 1.
I would have loved to have seen, one of those two.
That's like that's a number one. But do you think it's because, like, we're hip-hop fans, obviously we have a bias towards hip-hop albums, whatever the case may be, but when you look at, let's say, this album, like The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, it goes beyond that, right? Like, you're bringing in hints of soul and you're bringing in, like, a heavy R&B presence. So do you think that probably played a factor in them getting it at that number 1 position over a 36 Chambers, over an Illmatic, that sort of stuff?
Well, I do think that a common thread within this whole list is that they're definitely suckers for albums that are like genre blending and that have fusions all across them. And Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is a great example of an album that touches so many different sounds and eras of music. So I think that's sort of where they went with it. But I definitely think a hip hop album could be worthy and should be considered to be worthy as the number 1 best album of all time, just because unlike any other genre, I feel like with hip hop, you can truly take your poetry to a more in-depth level, just because when you look at like the average words per song in hip hop versus any other genre, you're able to be more descriptive and detailed with your stories and with
The songwriting.
the messaging of the music. So hip hop is a special album, and I was happy to see the love it got on this list. But one of my biggest gripes, as we're getting into the conversation, just wrapping up our thoughts on this, I feel like they completely neglected underground hip hop and the underground scene for the majority of genres on here. I feel like there should have been an MF Doom album placed on this list. I was surprised that
Mad Villainy didn't make it.
you know, like maybe put in a Run the Jewels album, like some Billy Woods, like show us that like this has nothing to do with just like mass impact and like streams and like popularity. Like I think that that's sort of my biggest gripe
So,
within this.
okay,
Hold
well-
on, let me finish.
Yeah.
I just feel like when you look at it, there's not really any underground albums on the
Yes.
list.
Yeah, but okay.
What do you mean? Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Let me make. So when you look at, let's say, something like a Billy Woods, what Billy Woods album would you put over a Get Rich or Die Trying, or would you put over a
I'm
Doggy
using
Style?
Billy Woods as an example of saying that they didn't show love to any underground hip. Like for example, Most Def, Black on Both Sides. That should have been on this list.
Maybe Below the Heavens by Blue and Exile.
But
That
that's
could
what
have been
I'm
considered.
saying.
Yes, I understand.
And,
but
and
like,
a lot
I'm
of
just
people, and
going-
a lot of people put Billy Woods' catalog in that upper echelon in the music pantheon.
I understand what you're saying, but I think that they did good. They did a good selection with what like they had to do with it. Like I agree, maybe a Mad Villainy or whatever the case may be, but
Absolutely.
even if you look at your list and my list for top 10 albums of all time, like
But this
it's
is not
pretty-
a top 10. This is top 100. This is a top 100 list. You're going to see way more underground albums included
yes,
in my list.
Of course, but we're going to be doing it solely for the hip hop genre.
But regardless, there was no underground inclusions across the board for the most part.
I understand what you're saying, but I can understand why they chose those albums. Like, I'm not here looking at this and I'm like, oh, well, you know, let's go to number, like, let's say 98 with Astroworld. You know,
and then
that
Ma-
shouldn't
Mad
be on
Villainy
your-
shorldn't be above Astroworld?
Of course.
No, but what do you?
Obviously not.
What's the point you're trying
I'm
to
just,
get at?
I'm just trying to say that, like, obviously you could do the fan service and you could go into, like, the Reddit communities and try to find those albums. But at the same time, like, their hip hop inclusions were good inclusions. They covered a good majority of the best albums that the genre has ever seen. Obviously, I think there's snubs on this list, but I'm not looking at this and being like, oh, well, Billy Woods or Mike should have made this list. That's at least my opinion.
I wouldn't put Mike into the conversation.
But like, I'm
that's
just
a bit of a no, don't compare Billy Woods and Mike. That's a bit of a far stretch.
I'm just trying to give you the understanding of the way that I feel about it, or even like not having any Griselda albums on here, or like not having any Ka albums on here. I understand why they went with what they went with off of these projects.
I don't think any Griselda albums should be on the list either.
I don't think so either.
But ultimately, I do think that they messed up with the underground snubs within the list as a whole.
I think where they messed up was with the hip hop placements. I'm not mad at the albums that they chose. I feel like To Pimp a Butterfly, Mad Villainy, other albums should have been on this list. Obviously, those are albums that I've been preaching for from the beginning of this episode. But when you look at it, like Illmatic's Too Low, looking at 36 Chambers, having albums like The Blueprint and The Miseducation, I feel like over those albums is not a good look.
No love for Wheezy.
That's another thing.
No love for Wheezy, man.
No love for J. Cole either.
Yeah.
No love for J. Cole. Like, take For Your Eyes Only or 2014. You could put that over Astroworld.
Yeah.
You could put that over Astroworld. I wouldn't be mad at that. But guys, listen, let us know. How do you feel about this list overall? What would you change and what would you include? And let me know, what should we do as our next episode for a top 100 list, a top 50 list, top 10, whatever the case may be. What would you like to see from NFR as far as ranking goes? Thank you so much for watching this video, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.